Hi, fourth grade. We're going to continue our math lessons. Today, we're going to be working on lesson 23.2, the metric measurement system. This will be coming from page 594 in your math textbook. Please take out your math book and your journal, get your journal labeled so that we can get ready to go. So, like I mentioned to you yesterday, the metric measurement system is used all over the world. The United States of America is the only country that uses the customary system to measure. So it's important for us to also learn the metric system because that's the way the rest of the world functions. The metric system is actually easier to manipulate and to understand. The reason why is that it's very simplified. Instead of having so many different terms, the terms are very simple because they all start with the same base units. So we're going to first start by taking notes on what those base units are. The base unit for length, so you can write down length, the base unit is meters. And then there's other terms, other prefixes to mean larger than a meter or smaller than a meter and by how many. And those prefixes are the same for all of these units of measurement, which is what makes it easy to understand. Then for capacity, the base unit is liters. And for mass, the base unit is grams. If at any point during the video you need more time to take notes, please feel free to pause the video and then unpause when you're ready. So like I mentioned to you, the metric measurement system has prefixes to go onto each base unit. So I want you to copy down this diagram as well, particularly making sure that base unit is written in the middle and knowing that those base units can be what we just discussed, those meters for length, grams for weight, or liters for capacity. So those are the base units, and to say that something is larger than that base, we have three prefixes: kilo, hecto, and deca. The root kilo means 1,000. The root hecto means 100. And the root deca means 10. So that means that these are 10 times bigger than the base unit, 100 times bigger than the base unit, and 1,000 times bigger than the base unit. Now, when you're using conversions, trying to get from a larger unit to a smaller unit, you're going to use multiplication. And if we're trying to get from the base unit to the larger unit, we're going to use division. So make sure you're jotting down all of these notes. So I want to show you this as an example before I explain the smaller units. So I'm going to write this in red. You don't need to write this with me. So let's say I have 2 kilograms. So remember, grams is just my base unit. The prefix I'm looking at is kilo. And I want to know how many grams that equals. How many grams does that equal? So what I'm going to do, I'm trying to get from kilograms to grams. So what I'm going to do from kilo, I see my arrow here, from kilo to grams, I'm going to multiply. I'm going to multiply by the number that it means. Kilo means 1,000. So I'm going to take, to get from kilo to grams, I'm going to take 2 and multiply it by 1,000. And that will equal 2,000 grams. Let's say I want to get it back into a different form. So let's say I have 2,000 grams, as I've just been working with. I'm going to write G for grams. And I would like to get it into hecto. I want them to be hectograms. Now, that's not a normal thing that you normally hear, but let's just pretend. I want to get it into hectograms. So I'm going from grams to hectograms and going to divide. Hecto means 100, so I'm going to divide by 100. So I'm going to take my 2,000 grams, I'm going to divide it by 100, and that will equal 20 hectograms. So do you see how that math was so much easier for us to do than yesterday's math? That's because the customary system is made up of a lot of different units and it's not uniform. The metric system has very uniform units. Everything is consistent, which makes it easier. Let's talk about the other side of the chart. So if I want to show something that means a smaller unit, I have 3 ways to describe that we're going to learn today. I have deci, which means 1/10, centi, which means 1/100th, and milli, which means 1/1000th. So those prefixes can be attached onto the base units so that we're able to describe units that are for smaller measurements. So if I am at the base unit and I'm trying to get out to one of these smaller units, I'm going to multiply. If I am at one of these smaller units and I'm trying to get to the base unit, I'm going to divide. Now, when I multiply, I'm going to multiply by 10, 100, or 1,000. And when I divide, I'll do the same by 10, 100, or 1,000. Another way to look at this is just in terms of remembering which comes first. I have a funny phrase for you. You don't have to write this down, but kilo, hecto, deca, unit, and then deci, centi, milli. A funny phrase to help you remember from largest to smallest. You can think of this phrase. King Henry died unusually drinking chocolate milk. It's kind of a silly phrase for you to remember the order from largest to smallest of the units. This chart is in your textbook, but I would like you to copy it down into your journal. So you might need to pause the video so you can get that copied. And make sure at the top that you write down this key for yourself as well. That's to help you remember whether you should multiply or divide. So if we're going from any of these units on the left side of the chart, centimeters, decimeters, meters, kilometers, kilograms, or liters, to these other things that they equal, we're going to multiply. If you're going from these on the right side to the left, we'll divide. So this is a little key to help you remember that today. Most importantly, though, is to make sure that you have copied down what these different phrases represent: kilo, deca, hecto, deci, centi, and all of those, what they represent. Okay, so let's start our practice today applying what we have just been talking about. So number 1 says, how many centimeters are in 35 decimeters? So I need to know centimeters. How many centimeters are in 35 decimeters? In order to solve this problem, I need to take a look at my chart so I can see the proper conversions I should use. So I'm going from decimeters to centimeters. So on my chart here, I see that if I'm going from decimeters to centimeters, so I'm following in towards the right, my chart tells me that I need to multiply, and I'm going to multiply that by 10. 1 decimeter equals 10 centimeters. So I'm going to take my 35 decimeters and multiply that by 10 because each of them is worth 10 centimeters. And that will tell me how many centimeters I have in total. So 35 times 10, you could do this in your calculator or using mental math, equals 350 centimeters. Numbers 2 through 4, let's take a look at just seeing which would be a more reasonable measurement. So this is where it's important to remember the bigger units of measurement versus the smaller units. Taking a look at number 2, I see there's this dry erase marker. Is that dry erase marker likely to weigh 14 kilograms, which is on the large side, or 14 grams, which is the base unit? Well, I know that kilograms are used to measure very heavy things because they're worth 1,000 grams. So I know that is not reasonable. 14 grams would be the most reasonable measurement. Then I have this teaspoon here, and this little measuring spoon. Is that either 5 milliliters, milliliters being small, or is that 5 liters? Now, one visual that I'd like you to think of is at the grocery store when you're getting ready to have a party and your parents buy some soda. They normally buy those big bottles of soda for those parties, right? Those are liters. So those big soda bottles that you can buy are liters. And so imagine what would be more appropriate, 5 milliliters or 5 liters for this little tiny measuring spoon. Milliliters would be much more appropriate. And then number 4, I see a set of drawers. Would that be more appropriate to be 4 millimeters? So again, we have that milli, that's very, very small, or 4 decimeters. 4 decimeters would be much more appropriate. Millimeters are very, very tiny units of measurement. So this might seem familiar from yesterday, this next set of the lesson, where we are looking at a chart, writing an equation to help us solve it, and then completing the table. So for this, what I'd like you to do is just see what is happening to each number, write an equation for that, and then check the chart to make sure that that makes sense. So looking here, I see that we're going from liters to millimeters, and I see the number definitely appears to be increasing. We're trying to go from liters, I'll write a cursive L, to meters, just write an M. So I know it's increasing, so I know it's multiplication, but let's check our chart to make sure to see how many. So looking back at that original chart, we are going from liters to milliliters. So I see that's on my chart here, going liters to milliliters. I know that that is multiplication. I'm going to multiply by 1,000 is what my chart tells me. 1 milliliter is equal to 1,000. 1 meter is equal to 1,000 milliliters. So I know that my liters are being multiplied by 1,000. So that's my equation. Super simple. I just write what's being done to the numbers. So liters are being multiplied by 1,000 to get milliliters. And although it says M on your chart, milliliters is actually written like this, M, lowercase m, and then a capital L. So that's how we're going to do it for us as well. Then on our chart, we can write our L and our ML for liters and milliliters. And let's copy down what's happening. So I have 7 liters is 7,000 milliliters. If I have 8, if I plug in 8 here, 8 times 1,000 would equal 8,000. That's going to go here. Then I have 9, and they already tell me that's 9,000. So definitely the pattern is staying consistent. If I plug in 10 into the equation times 1,000, that's going to be 10,000. And you can use your chart, or you can use your calculator, or you can use mental math. Either way is okay with me. Number 6. Number 6, we are going from centimeters, so cm, to meters. Let's take a look at our chart to see how we can get from centimeters to meters. Now, looking back at our original chart that I had you copy down from the book, that does not actually have that conversion. I see centimeters to millimeters, and I see meters to millimeters, but I don't see centimeters to meters. So let's take a look at that. So to get from 1 meter equals 100 centimeters. And knowing that we are moving from centimeters to meters for this problem, if I follow my chart here, moving in this direction, I know that I need to divide. So my solution is going to be to divide by 100. If we look back at that first chart that I had you guys make, we can see that as well, moving from centimeters to the base unit meters, we're going to use division. Do you see that arrow direction is going in that same way? And centi is 100. So we're going to divide by 100 to get our answer of meters. So let's start to copy down this chart, centimeters. I want you to write cm. Get in the practice and habit of doing that. I know the textbook says something different right here, but cm is the correct way to write centimeters. So we have 1,100 centimeters would equal how many meters? So if I plug in 1,100 into the equation instead of cm, all right, 1,100 divided by 100. I could plug this into my calculator or use mental math, and I'll find that that equals 11. Then the next part of our chart is already completed. I have 1,000, and that equals 10. Then I have 900. 900, I'll plug that into my equation. 900 divided by 100 equals 9. 800 divided by 100 equals 8. And then last but not least, 700 divided by 100 would equal 7. Let's continue. On working on metric measurement systems, it's important to not look at a number and decide that it's bigger or smaller just based on what the number itself is. You have to look at the label. The reason why is because even though I see this big number, 1,500 grams, that very well could be one of the smallest numbers, even though it's one of the biggest in this list. So the reason why is because of these labels, they mean different things. A kilogram is a lot larger than a gram. There's 1,000 grams in 1 kilogram. So this little guy here that says 2 kilograms, that's a little bit misleading. You look at it, you think, oh, 2, that's not that much, but that's 2 times 1,000 grams. So then you have 2,000, it's a lot bigger. So we have to make sure that when we are converting, when we're using the measurements, trying to get them in order from greatest to least or least to greatest, that we have them all in the same unit of measurement. So we'll have to do some converting first. So before we start converting, let's start by just copying down what we see. So I have 1,500 grams. I have 2 kilograms, 750 grams, and 1 kilogram. Let's begin by converting all of these into grams. So it's just grams all the way across the board. So I have 2 kilograms. I know that the root kilo means 1,000. I know that that is a larger unit, so I know that I need to multiply this times 1,000 to equal grams. So 2 kilograms times 1,000 is going to equal 2,000 grams. And then I need to do the same for 1 kilogram, multiply it by 1,000. And that will equal 1,000 grams. So now that these are all in grams, I can now more clearly see, ordering from greatest to least like the directions say. I see the greatest is 2,000 grams, but the original was 2 kilograms, so we'll keep it as 2 kg for kilograms. The next largest is 1,500 grams. Then after that, we have 1 kilogram, which was 1,000 grams. I'll keep it as 1 kg like the original problem. And then the smallest is 750 grams. Let's solve another one like that, number 13. This time we're working with the unit of meters, decimeters, millimeters, and centimeters. We'll copy down the originals. We have 70 decimeters, 2,000 millimeters, and 500 centimeters. So looking at this, we need to begin by making sure they're all in the same unit of measurement. I see that millimeters here is the smallest, so we're going to put them all into one so that we can clearly see. We're going to use centimeters. That's one of the most known units of measurement, so it's a little bit easier to understand. It really doesn't matter which one you pick in order to put them in order, as long as you stay consistent. So I'm going to convert millimeters and decimeters into centimeters so that I can see clearly which is worth which. So we're going to get it from decimeters to centimeters, 70 decimeters to centimeters. So looking here, I see that 1 decimeter is 10 centimeters. So I'm moving from decimeters to centimeters. I know I'm going to multiply that by 10. Deci means 10. So I know I'm multiplying by 10. 70 times 10 is 700. So that's equivalent to 700 centimeters. Now millimeters, I know milli, the root milli means 1,000. But I'm going from 2,000 millimeters to centimeters. Let's take a look here and see if I have that conversion readily available. I see, yes, I do see centimeters to millimeters. So 1 centimeter is 10 millimeters, but we're trying to convert from millimeters to centimeters. So I'm going to actually move this way from millimeters to centimeters. And I see that's division again. I'm going to divide by 10. So I'm going to divide 2,000 by 10 to get centimeters. 2,000 divided by 10, you can do that in your calculator or using mental math, crossing off 1 0 from each number, which would leave us at 200. So 200 centimeters is equivalent to the 2,000 millimeters. And then I already have 500 centimeters as centimeters, so that can stay as is. So looking at this now that they're all in centimeters, I can definitely tell which is the largest. So I see that the largest is the 700 centimeters, which originally was written as 70 decimeters. So I'll write 70 dm. The next largest was 500 centimeters. And the smallest was 200 centimeters, which was originally 2,000 millimeters. So do you see why it's important that you have them all converted to be the same unit of measurement so that you can clearly see? Because looking at this at first glance, 2,000 millimeters, I'm like, whoa, 2,000, that must be the biggest. But it actually was the smallest. So make sure that you do the conversions before you start sorting them. All right, so let's do a couple more conversions. Make sure that you're comfortable before you have to begin your daily independent assignment. So let's take a look at number 18, 19, and 20. We're going to tell whether we should multiply or divide, and we're actually going to go one step further by solving the whole problem so that I know that you've had enough practice to be comfortable. So we're starting at 8,000 milliliters, and we're trying to get to liters. So let's take a look at our chart. We're going from milliliters to liters. So I'm flipping all the way back to our original chart here. So I'm going from milliliters to liters. So that's down here, milliliters to liters. I know that milliliters, there's 1,000 of them in a liter. I know that when I go from something small to something larger, I'm going to use division. So I'm going to divide by 1,000. So I'm going to divide by 1,000. And then let's actually go a step further and solve it. So I'll do 8,000 divided by 1,000. You can do this mentally or with your calculator, and you should get that it equals 8 liters. Number 19. Number 19 says centimeters, going from centimeters to 4,000 millimeters. So again, let's take a look at our chart. Going from millimeters to centimeters. And I see that conversion is here at the top, millimeters to centimeters. So again, when I'm going from something smaller to bigger, I'm going to use division. I'm going to divide by 10 because 1 centimeter is equal to 10 millimeters. So I'm going to divide by 10. So 4,000 divided by 10. You can do this mentally or with a calculator. Using mental math, we have 1 0 in the 10, so we'll cross a 0 off from each one, which will leave us with 400 centimeters. And last one I'll model for you today, number 20, going from 16 kilograms to however many grams. I know that kilo is larger, so I'm going from a larger unit to a smaller unit. So whenever I go from larger to smaller, I'm going to be multiplying, but let me show you that on the chart. So I'm going from kilograms to grams. Whenever I'm going from larger to smaller, I need to multiply, and I'm going to multiply by 1,000. This will be a lot of grams. So I need to multiply by 1,000. And let's take it a step further by actually solving that. That will equal 16,000 grams. Okay, so I know that was probably a lot and you might be feeling really pushed to your limit. So again, please just try your best and know that that is enough for me. And we have a class Zoom today, so please make sure you come ready with questions at 11. I want you to try all of 23.2. And make sure that you're using those conversion charts. If you didn't get a chance to copy them down, make sure you go back to the beginning of the video and copy down the chart where I show you the meanings of those prefixes and also show you whether you should multiply or divide. A little key for success, just to remind you, when we're going from a big unit to a smaller unit, we are going to multiply. And when we're going from a small unit to a big unit, you're going to divide.